a very serious one. Now, look at how the dependence of foot soldiers, and you know how they call their campaign funds? They call it war chest. Okay, and then when the campaign starts, the posturing and so on. So you now have a situation where we manage our elections and steer it off explosion by the intervention of priests from all the Peace Council, various churches praying, you know, even the Supreme Court, the judiciary gets involved, educating people about why they should go to the Supreme Court, the procedures to follow, and so on. You have the security forces demonstrating, National Election Security Task Force, and the security forces, including the army and others, how to show their power and so on. You don't call those just political anxiety. It is very serious.
Right.
And so I think the appropriate, when it says turbulence, it is a threat. It is really, really turbulent. Look at how people get scared, and the prayers intensify, and everybody almost pleading. And then you see codes of conduct that are not being adhered to.
That's right.
You remember Kumasi and so on. So it's more, the reality is closer to the reality in talking about political turbulence.
So when we say anxiety, it might be watering down on the real situation on the ground.
Considerably. It goes beyond that. There is real fear that seizes a nation. And a lot of summits, peace summits, you remember, during July 2013, Kumasi meetings, and various other meetings on various civil society platforms, prayers, midnight, you know, fasting, all sorts of things, both spiritual and temporal, have play a role in managing our elections.
Right.
And that's not democratic, a good record of democratic elections.
So really, I mean, from these indicators that you've given us, it means that you fairly support the position of Cardinal Turkson.
No, not in terms of the interim government. Our position, and when I say our position, I don't mean only IDEC, I mean the Civic Forum as well.
Yeah.
We have, you see, we've worked with him, and I must admit that we've not been conversing for a long time now. But our position is this, that we have to take some decisions urgently in order to steer 2016 away from the volatility. If you don't want to say turbulence, you can say the volatility, you know. It's too pitched and it's too threatening, the tensions are there and so on. And the reason why we do that is that a third consecutive, you know, turbulent election would damage Ghana considerably, internationally, because they'll begin to question our democratic credentials. And so we can do, there are actions we can take. In democracy, you take rational actions through policy dialogue, through set of convincing proposals that parties have to compromise on, build consensus, and commit to implement. I think the problem that we are pushing that, so you see, we've been talking about multi-party governance reforms, we've been talking about the agency for decisions to be made by the party, strategic decisions, transformational decisions before 2016, so that at least we would indicate to the people of Ghana that our politicians are able to rise above, the political parties especially, rise above their partisan and sectional interests to look at what is in the national interest.
Right.
But it requires a dialogue, and it's been difficult to bring it upstream. We have proposals elaborated to engage the parties. I mean, now the two parties have elected their national leadership practically, and therefore it is important to engage them.
Right.
You know, the Peace Council has been part of this, the National House of Chiefs, and almost all the large civil society organizations are involved in this. So we are seeking ways of engaging the parties so that they would also be able to address the issues that are of concern to the larger public, not just the power that must be won through elections, but also to assure people that the system will be transformed in a way through their decisions so that we can concretely go through 2016 with the hope that things are going to get better. Now, I can tell you briefly some of the things that we think should be done and can be done. What is important is to make a decision. And we think we should change the electoral rules. If you look at Cardinal Turkson, he was talking not only about process issues, that there's a need for time to dialogue and agree.
That's
and
right.
there's no political dialogue going on. But he also wanted to see the so-called winner-takes-all system change somewhat. We have a simple proposal. The winner-takes-all is an abuse of a simple electoral rule procedure. Now, if we want to tackle the problems that are created since it's become a culture, we have to adjust the electoral procedure. And it is simple. let us move away from just electing the president and making that election party-based. Let us also now open up the elections to the executive arm of government by opening up local government to parties and competition, also to the electorate determining. Now, once you do that, it will be quite transformational if we can do that. And what it would do subsequently is that it is going to force our president, who is elected as central leader of central government, and those elected as local government, to find a way of working together. It might take some time to build the cohabitation or whatever it is that they might want to and collaborate. But the electorate would have decided on that.
Right.
You can do this 5 years on. You don't have to do it immediately. But making that decision is important, and it will mean amending aspects of the Constitution.
Right. Dr. Akoto, I'll have you hold briefly. We'll continue our conversation, but we have on the other telephone line Professor Right Reverend Emmanuel Asante, former chairman of the Peace Council. He's joining us. Good evening, sir. Right, I think we lost Professor Right Reverend Emmanuel Asante, former chairman of the Peace Council. He's joining us on the telephone, but we've lost him. Dr. Emmanuel Asante, if you're there, I mean, the whole discussion of winner takes all, we had the big talk about decentralization, maybe making our decentralization system work for us by encouraging voting of DCEs and the lot. Now, there are many who feel that this will be a repetition of the same thing that has been happening in our national elections if we took it to the district levels as well, and the same tensions or anxieties that have built up to this time will also begin to build up on the local level if we go that way.
Well, the national elections are held at local level. So what extraordinary would occur? And, turnout in local elections are the lowest. In 2010, it was less than 40% or about 40%. Let's see how it would be in March. Because enthusiasm and mobilization around local elections have been weakening, and we've not found a solution. Whereas if you look at the national elections and whatever it is, the turnout is extremely high. So there is a whole case against those who say, look, if you open up local government elections to the parties and so on, you are just going to spread the wrong things in party governance, especially corruption, as they say, would spread and so on. But it's there. Look, read the Auditor General's reports, go to parliamentary accounts reports, and so on.
Right.
So what we should have the courage to make what is right. Indeed, I agree that just electing chief executives under the... Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening, sir.
Just electing chief executives under the existing system.
Yeah.
Whether the president nominates 5 people and then 3 are shortlisted for elections within the assemblies or not, doesn't bring any change. The change will come about only when you open it to parties, because then you may end up in a situation where the president, whether it's President Mahama or an MPP president in the future or something, would have to govern the country with representatives in the districts that do not belong to his party.
Right.
And this is needed because each president since 1992 abused the understanding that people who are competent, irrespective of party affiliation, will be appointed to local government. It has become extremely partisan. So the understanding, which was not enforced in law, or in the Ghanaian language, enshrined in law, has not been respected by any of the two parties. And increasingly, local government is already partisan and not inclusive as it was meant to be.
Right.
We think that if you give the power to the electorate and the elected, it will be more inclusive because they will redistribute. I mean, NDC will control a lot of districts, MPP to begin with. The smaller parties might come in. With time, it will change the dynamics.
Right.
So sometimes fear is what stops us, but we should be courageous.
Be courageous.
But elections alone would not be enough. We have to do devolution, because if you elect MPP district chief executive and NDC district chief executive, they must have enough guaranteed access to resources to implement their policies. And the president, who needs a vote from every corner of the country to win elections, especially as the margins are sometimes small, might find a way of working with them. It would be more positive than we think. And finally, we need to strengthen the civil service. This is why Cardinal Texan's technocracy is to say, can we get institutions of state and the personnel, like civil servants, public servants, and so on, NDC, NDPC people,
right, Dr.
who would be in the middle of the partisan struggle. And so that's what we are talking about.
Right, Dr. Kote, we are grateful for your time on today's big story. We're glad that you could throw this light on the issue. I think let's get onto the other line and speak to Right Reverend Asante, who is joining us now. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good evening. In actual fact, I've told him that I am Reverend Dr. Steve Asante.
Right.
I'm not Reverend Professor Asante.
Okay. Right. That's fine. Now, I roped you in so that we could get a different perspective on the discussion we are having at stake. Cardinal Texan is calling for a political break. What appears to, he says, he thinks that there being too much political turmoil in our system. So if we had a national government which consisted of technocrats to run the country for a period, whilst re-engaging the political actors to perhaps go back to the political timetable or whatever it is, it will be good for Ghana. Do you see this as a good suggestion coming from especially him, who has played a very key role in national peace dialogues in the past?
Well, I think that argument is informed by what we have all observed over the years, of the dispensation over the years. So definitely he has a very good point in this issue. That is a very good argument, because aren't we tired of the political turmoil in Africa? These days are hardly we talk about Ghana. We seem to be in total confusion, and I think it will be a very good opportunity to what we have seen over there.
Now, the key issue here is whether politicians, for example, the key political parties, the NDC and the MPP, can cede their power to a national government which will work and rule the country without political inclusion. Is this feasible?
That is another issue, because once people get power, you know what it means. It isn't, but what will make it possible is a very strong review and
Right, Doc, our line is very bad. We'll drop you briefly and then we'll restore the line and get back to you. We seem to have some bad feedback in your line. And my name is Stephen Anti, and you've been hearing Dr. Emmanuel Akwete and Dr. Stephen Asante speaking on the issue of suggestions by Cardinal Texan to form a national government of technocrats to run this country during a period of a political break, to give us what he calls a reprieve in the political turmoil. We'll be right back. Do stay. Right, let's quickly get onto the telephone lines again and speak to Right Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante, who is the chairman of the Peace Council and presiding bishop of the Methodist Church of Ghana. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
Now, I do know that political turmoil, political anxiety, or perhaps what I should call political volatility has been a key issue for the Peace Council over the years. Now, when we look at that situation on the ground and calls by Cardinal Peter Texan for Ghana to take a break from active political activity and perhaps leave the governance of this country to a select group of technocrats to rule for a time, at least, to give us a political break. Do you see this as something that is in line with the political climate?
Well, let me first of all say that I have a deep sense of respect for Cardinal Texan. When he comes out to say a thing like that, obviously he must definitely know why he's saying what he's saying. I personally do not think that even though it is good for us to have
some kind of governance that will include everybody. I don't think that we cannot have such a government without with parties, the party.
Yeah. The existing political structure.
With the existing political structures, it is possible for us to have the kind of thing that he's talking about. I have always advocated for a national agenda, where we really come up with a program for the nation so that any political party that comes in power, the manifesto of that party will be judged in accordance with the agreed national agenda. Whether that political party's manifesto is going to help us fulfill that agenda that we have all agreed on. So that we are not ruled on the basis of parties' manifestos that have nothing, to do with a previous government, project and so on. So as far as I'm concerned, it is possible for us to have the existing system, and yet at the same time, we can tinker with it and push it in such a way that this whole business of winner takes all, coming in to do my own thing with no regard for the feelings of the majority or others may not come in there. Yeah.
Right, Prof, we're grateful for your time. I'm afraid we don't have a lot of time. We would love to have a longer discussion with you on this, and we'll get in touch with you for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, on the other telephone line, we're joined by Dr. Vladimir Entry Danso, who is international relations expert, is joining us on the line now. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
I do know that as an international relations expert, you might be concerned about Ghana's image abroad when it comes to our political structures and our democratic system. I spoke to Dr. Emmanuel Akwete a while ago, who made reference to the fact that the elections we've had over the years, 2008, 2012, and the others, have raised political tensions to such an extent that perhaps it's time for us to find ways of simmering down on these tensions. Now, do you think this is what we need to do now?
Definitely. One way or the other, we need to find a way of bringing down the simmering tensions, because one thing adding on to the another, and you see, things happen when there are necessary conditions, which become sufficient conditions, and then there is an explosion. And so any form of measures that we would take in order that the next election or thereafter there will be no such problem, it's very forthcoming. I mean, it's something that we should be thinking about.
From where you...
It's a suggestion from somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe there are other ways.
From where you stand, do you see our international partners, or perhaps I should say our donor partners, looking on the fragility of our electoral system as worrying?
The point is this, that maybe most of you have not been watching what they say about us. Even though they tout us as an island in the midst of areas of turmoil, they still are worried. United States Agency for International Development has a report on Ghana for 2011. And in that report, the worry is clear.
It's clear
that the patronage system, the winner-takes-all system, is somehow patronized so much by Ghanaians and by the two leading political parties, such that there is the possibility of a problem in the future. Other bodies are also always touting Ghana as a very good place for kind of democratic experiment. But they warn that our democracy is badly hiccuping.
Yeah.
And so, any attempt to make sure that our democracy gets crystallized instead of getting hiccuping, it's a good call.
It's a good call. Right, so let's put that now in the context of Cardinal Peter Turkson's call for Ghana to give itself a political break, do away with all the politics, and in place of that, form a national government of technocrats who will now rule the country for a period which is agreed upon by all political stakeholders, including the parties and civil society groups, etc., and then perhaps re-engage ourselves to a new pattern or a new way of doing things. Do you think that this is a good call? and it's feasible within our democratic dynamics?
Well, the point is this, that it's a very good kind of thinking, but unfortunately it's a little too late. We should have done this thing before we ushered ourselves into the 1992 Constitution.
I see.
We should have had a kind of building a platform for party politics. We didn't. We ushered ourselves in within the rank of political kind of bickering already from 1992. So it's a little too late. I say a little too late because what do you do with a constitutional order? And it wouldn't take anybody in class 1 to be able to take you to court and tell you that your government is illegitimate. Illegitimate simply because it doesn't conform to the Constitution. In actual fact, in 1992, when most political parties boycotted the parliamentary elections, people suggested a similar thing. But the late B.J. Darocha said, look, an elementary school boy can take anybody to court saying that the government is not legitimate. So once you have accepted the Constitution, go on with it.
Let's go on with it.
So even though Cardinal is giving us something very good, but this is not the first time people are calling for the rule by technocrats. In Russia, they called for that sometime. In France, they were calling for it. So I think he has given us an idea. And I believe we can use the constitutional means to ensure that whichever political party wins can clean the slate by making technocrats rule and getting a consensus building kind of political dispensation before we go back into our bickerings and whatnot and when we have really matured our democracy. We are not mature. And then in our toddling years, we are biting and kicking and insulting, and it's just bad.
Right. Dr. Antwi Danso, we're grateful for your time. Dr. Antwi Danso is an international relations expert. He joined us. And that's how we draw the curtains for today's big story. We'll be right back with Interactive. Do stay.